What everybody needs to realize is banks don't want houses.
No.
Banks want money. And if you
Yeah.
understand how a bank works, it'll make more sense and you'll be more comfortable with it.
Hey. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. I'm your host, Dwan Twyford. I'm America's most sought after real estate investor, and you have reached Dwanderful. If you are interested in getting some free stuff, go to Dwanderful, Dwanderful, Dwanderful.com, opt in. I've got 4 free ebooks for you. And our motto at Dwanderful is people before profits. So if that's something that resonates with you, then you're at the right place. This is the right time. And we're going to talk about all the things in the world that have to do with real estate investing. And today is Thursday. So I have a guest. So I have my wicked smart man. So my wicked smart man today is Don DeRosa. So Don, how are you, honey?
I'm great. I'm excellent. Thank you for having me here.
I'm excited. We finally got a chance to hook up. So yeah, so when you're on that, you're either the badass boss babe or the wicked smart man.
Okay.
So you're the wicked smart man today. So we are expecting to learn a lot of fun things and just have a
Excellent.
good time. And we always start off, we have a toast. So I
Okay.
want to welcome you to my show. So cheers. Cheers,
Cheers.
everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And you guys know the drill. Take a deep breath, stretch it out, shake off whatever's been bugging you today, and just set your mind and to have some fun and just listen and to learn because Don's got really a lot of great information for you today. So Don, what we start off with is I like for you to tell us in a very mini version who you are, how we get in touch with you, and what you do. And then I'm going to ask you a bunch of really fun questions. And you all know my guests never know what I'm going to ask them. So that's what makes it fun for me. So
Okay.
basically, we want to know, what is your deal?
What is my deal? Well, let me hang on. That's my contact information. So if you can see it,
So
that's my
Don
email.
DeRosa5 at gmail.com,
That's my personal
678.
one. That's my personal one. So yeah, that's the best one.
Okay, I have to write that down because I have to be able to read that back later. Okay, six seven
DonDeRosa5 at
eight
Gmail. And then my
four
cell
one
phone, if anybody needs to get a hold of me, is 678-410-7352.
52 and Don DeRosa5 at Gmail.
Yep. So that's my
Okay.
contact information. A little bit about me is I started, gosh, it goes back all the way back to the early 90s. I
Uh-huh.
worked for Airborne Express for many years. I was a district manager for them. And when I first started there, I would wake up in the middle of the night when everybody was sleeping, and I would get a crew, go to the airport, unload, have a crew that unloaded the aircraft, and then by the time I got back at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, half my day was done, and you guys were still
Uh-huh.
getting out of bed. Well, I loved it, but I always felt there was something better. So back then, you'd be up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you see this infomercial.
Yes.
So I was one
Was
of
it
those.
Carlton Sheets?
Yes, it was Carlton Sheets.
Yes,
So
that's the
I
first one
bought
I
that.
ever saw.
So I bought that information, got it home. I think I spent like $300. I got it home, put it out on the living room floor. Thought I was going to be the next millionaire in 30 days. But then life got in the way. I put it on the shelf, didn't pick it up again until 1997. And in between there, I moved 7 times in 10 years. With my day job or my corporate job, I was an efficiency expert along with the district field service manager, district manager. And so they would move me from station to station. Well, I got kind of tired of that. So after moving 7 times, you can imagine if you move a lot, you pack 100 boxes up, get to your new location, unpack 90. Well, after 7 years, my whole garage was full. So my wife literally grabbed me by the ear one day, pulled me to the garage, and said, "Okay, you see all those boxes? We haven't used them. We haven't opened them. If you don't do anything with them by Monday, they're going to the trash." Well, I was like, okay. So lo and behold, the first one I opened up was, and when I opened it up, it was Carlton Sheets' course. So I started following it. I was like, oh, wow, this is it. This is what I want to do. And it was in cassettes, or actually, I take that. Yeah, it was in cassettes. I didn't have
Yeah, I
anything.
bought it back
Yeah,
a
I was gonna
cajillion
say I
years ago. It
didn't
wasn't
even have
cassette.
anything. I didn't have anything to do, so I yelled at my wife. I'm like, "Hey, honey, I'm going to I think at the time Radio Shack," and or I told her I was going to Lowe's, and then went to Radio Shack and got something to convert them. So I started listening to him. One thing led to another, and got introduced to Ron LeGrand, and
Mm-hmm.
as they say, the rest is history. And I've purchased from the late 90s, I've purchased hundreds of homes. My strategy of choice is obviously subject to, but I, like you, early on got in the short sale game early on. And I wrote a course I don't even, it's not even in print now. But it was how to rob a bank with a ballpoint pen.
Oh, I like that. How to rob a bank with a ballpoint pen.
Yeah, that was a course, and then somebody made me feel really uncomfortable with that, and I ended up changing it. I ended up changing it to something really drab and really boring, and one thing led to another. That was kind of the start. I mean, that was back then. It was Georgia RIA was the largest RIA group in the country at that
Oh
time,
my
and
God, they were so big.
I went in there my first time, and there was like thousands of people there. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so yeah, after about 6 months, I got pretty good at real estate. And my technique was I would buy subject to and I would short sell the second mortgage.
Hmm.
So that was my shtick. That was my forte. So I
Uh-huh.
learned subject to and I learned how to short sell. And back then, they didn't have short sales like they do. There was no, you could literally call them on a Friday and say, "Hey, you're about to be foreclosed on Tuesday. Will you take $2,000?" And they would say yes.
They
And
would. I
then,
know they would.
and so nowadays it's not so easy, but we did tons of those. And over time, Georgia RIA at that time, I was a member there, and they kept saying, "Well, why don't you teach?" So one thing led to another, and now I have, shoot, probably close to 20 courses from
Nice. So
everything.
you have a lot of courses. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I have courses for just about everything you can imagine.
Yeah, we do too. We have, I don't even know. We have one for everything.
Yep.
But a
So,
lot of speakers don't. They teach and they train and they have like one topic and they honestly can't talk or teach about anything else but this single thing. It's
yeah, I
like, but if
know.
you're an investor and you've been doing this for decades,
Yep.
how do you not have more information?
Well, exactly. I mean, like I said, I probably have 20 different courses that range from subject to how to sell houses fast, due diligence, how to get the money, you name it. Every little facet,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know.
I love it. So you said you mostly do subject to. So is that like sort of what your deal is? Like it's subject twos?
That's my favorite technique is subject to. That's what I like. That's what I'm good at it all, but I really excel at that. Um,
Nice. So
and
explain to the audience because we have to just assume, and
they,
I
they
happen to
don't
be a
know
big fan of
anything.
subject twos as well. I have I think my subject two program is how to create something. I can't even think of the name about a monthly cash cow.
Yep.
Golly, that's terrible. I can't even think of the name of it right now. But it's my subject two because I'm a big fan of subject twos. I love them. I teach them
Yeah.
at my workshops. I do webinars on it once in a while. And I think most people don't know what it is.
Well, the basics of it
Or they're
is,
afraid of it because they don't
yeah,
understand.
that's the thing. That's the thing is they're afraid of it. But the thing is, well, let me mention, a while back, in fact, I'm going to be speaking. I do a lot with Keller Williams now, and a lot of the agents that I deal with, you and I both are in that millionaire real estate
Yes,
investor
we
book in the
are.
back, right? So because of that, I get a lot of agents that call me. In fact, I'm speaking in Virginia in December on subject to creative financing and how, and it's the same thing all the time. They say, "Well, you can't do that. It's illegal." And
All the time.
it just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up and go, "Okay, it's not illegal.
Ah,
It's
I'm in the
it's
boat with you. Yeah, you can't do that. It's illegal. I'm like,
yeah,
who
I
are you
have an
talking
agent.
to?
I mean, I argued with an agent, and they're like, "Well, it's illegal." I'm like, "No, no, it's not." I said, "If you look at your HUD statement, it'll on the right on the HUD statement about halfway down, it'll be a line on there subject to." So, banks don't like you to do it, but it's it,
We don't
they
care
don't
about the
put
banks.
they don't put you in jail for violating
No,
or doing
there's
something.
no subject to jail. All right, so tell everyone what a subject to is. Because I
Okay,
love this topic. I've talked about it before, and I love having someone that knows about it because it's such a great thing to talk about.
subject to is where you buy a house and the owner of the home literally gives you the deed, right? They sign
Hmm.
over the deed to you and you have ownership of it, but yet remember, you didn't have to go down and qualify for that mortgage.
That's right.
So if you look at it from a paperwork standpoint, it's sometimes easier to understand. When you buy a house, when you go and you buy your normal house, like a house you live in, they're going to require you. So I go down to the bank and I say, I want to buy this house for $300,000. Well,
Yep.
if I reach in my pocket, pull out $300,000 and give them to you, Dawn, as the owner, you're going to give me a warranty deed
Right.
as ownership, right? I paid
Right.
you cash. You're going to give me the warranty deed as ownership. However, if I don't have $300,000 and I got to go borrow that, I got to go down to the bank and I got to borrow that. Well, when I go to borrow that, they're going to make me sign a promissory note to pay. They promise to pay them back, right?
Yep.
And when they do that, they're going to qualify me. They're going to go pull my credit. They're going to make sure that I can pay it back, my debt to income ratio, my credit score, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
And then they're going to say, okay, you seem qualified. We'll lend you that 300,000 or whatever, a variance of that. Now, I asked this to everybody. Now, if that's all the bank gave you and you stopped making payments, what is the bank's recourse? And everyone's like, oh, foreclosure, this, that. I'm like, no, it is not. They can't do anything to you unless they have a lien on the property. So what happens is not only do they issue you a promissory note, they issue you what's called a security instrument.
Hmm.
In some states, they call it a mortgage. In other states, they call it a deed of trust. And in some states they call it a security instrument, but they all mean the same thing.
Yep.
It's an instrument that is placed on the property or in the name of the property, and they put a lien on the property that basically says if you can't sell this unless you pay this promissory note off. They're putting essentially a lien on the property that says you can't pay it, and inside that instrument, whether it be a deed of trust, promise, security instrument, or security deed, or mortgage, is what we call the due on sale clause. In there, buried in there, it says if the property transfers hands, the bank, and the operative word is may, at its option, call the note full due and payable. Everybody thinks that says will, and it doesn't. It says it may.
That's the first question. What about the due on sale clause? 100% of the time, it's like,
Yeah. So I try to educate people, and what everybody needs to realize is banks don't want houses.
no.
Banks want money. And if you
Yeah.
understand how a bank works, it'll make more sense and you'll be more comfortable with it. Because think about it. A bank borrows money from the Federal Reserve at this rate
Right?
and then lends it out to consumers over here at this rate. That difference in between is called a yield spread.
Yep.
That's what they're after. They're not after. So, and what a lot of people don't realize is, well, if I have lots of equity in my home and the bank's going to want to foreclose to get my equity. No, that's not how it works.
That's not how that works either.
So everybody has misinformation. So I always tell people, if you're going to learn how to do subject to, you got to go to people who know what they're doing in that, because they will give you some really bad advice.
Yes.
I mean,
Amen. You're like preaching to the choir. I freaking love subject twos.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. You have to go to folks like us that are actively doing it and are doing it right. Because I mean, there's people on Facebook right now that have Facebook groups designed specifically for those, and they give bad advice every day.
Oh my gosh, I cringe at some of the stuff I see that people write. It's like,
I know. I just
like you don't want to go in someone else's group and say, "Listen, this is all incorrect," but it's cringeworthy.
I know.
It is legitimately cringeworthy.
I said that one time. I said, because years ago when I first started, I did what we call tabletop or Waffle House closings, right? You would go and you'd get all the paperwork signed and get it notarized, but you wouldn't go to a closing. You'd save all that. You'd save $1,000 by not taking it to a closing attorney or a title company. And I quickly realized that that's probably not the safest thing to do.
No.
Because in real estate, there's what's called an arm's length transaction. So if you don't do that and you do what we call a tabletop closing, if the seller goes out and files bankruptcy, the bankruptcy trustee can look at that, especially if you do creative things like put a property in a trust or whatever you do. They can look at that homeowner as if they are trying to cheat the bankruptcy courts, and they will unwind that if they don't think it's an arm's length transaction. And I had a situation where I was like you, I want to make comments on these things all the time, but I learned to keep my mouth shut.
I know, but you can't. You can't go in someone else's group and trash them, even though you know what they're saying is not right.
I know. Well, one of the fellas said, I do nothing but tabletop closings. You're wasting your money.
No.
And I said, so I went and I said, that's not true. It's the best $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever you're going to spend. And it was like all these new folks, all these new investors have been brainwashed, and all this was dumped on me like I didn't know what I was doing.
Say you like they all attacked you.
2 weeks later, the guy that's heading the group calls me and goes, Don, I have a problem. And he proceeded to tell me the problem, and he did a tabletop closing. The seller went and filed bankruptcy, and guess what? He actually wholesaled the deal and to somebody, and the other investor paid directly the arrearages to the lender. Okay, then paid the wholesaler his money, and then the seller filed bankruptcy, and then he couldn't get title because the trustee went and they were gonna file charges for fraud against the seller.
Oh my gosh!
Because it wasn't an arm's length transaction. So there are lots of things that you want to make sure you do right. So
when you were saying arm's length, I understand what that means, but someone's listening and this is the first time hearing me or hearing you. What does that mean, arm's length?
An arm's length transaction is someone in the middle, like a title company or an attorney. So when you go and you say to a third party, like a title company, like in your state, you use title companies. Here in Georgia, we use attorneys as our closing, right?
Okay.
So you would go to the title company, you would order the title search, you would do the closing, and you would pay them their fees to do the rubber stamping and make sure it's all perfectly legal. Therefore, and you do that because when something really bad happens, it doesn't look like there's any collusion or
You
any.
didn't sign it at Wendy's.
Yeah, there's no funny stuff. It's not like the homeowner is trying to avoid foreclosure by signing it over to his nephew or
I agree.
whatever. So now when that happens, the third party, in this case, or attorney or title company,
Yeah.
they now represent you and say, wait a minute, this was a valid sale.
Yep.
This bankruptcy must be, they can file bankruptcy, but you have to remove the house from that bankruptcy.
Yes. And people don't understand that. If you just do like you meet at Denny's or their kitchen table and you notarize all the stuff, then they file bankruptcy. That house that you just bought, that you did whatever with it, it's all tied into that now. Like
Yep.
I would
And you can't
never
get it out. And
close.
you can't get it out.
No, I would never, ever, ever do a subject to and not do it at my title company. We've
Yep. I
done,
agree.
I mean, probably not as many as you. We've only done like 350, but they're all at the title company.
Yep. Every one of them. My first year, I probably did the Waffle House or tabletop closings.
I used
If
to
you're
meet
not from
people
here, you
at
don't know
Denny's.
if you're not from here, you don't know what Waffle House is, but it's just, like a tabletop closing.
Yeah, I used to
Uh,
meet people at Denny's or Wendy's way in the very
exactly.
beginning. And then
Exactly.
people like, then I got really like rolling in the business, and my title company's like, listen, you need to bring those deals over here. You're going to get in trouble. And they explained what you're telling me. But I didn't
Yep.
know that because I was fresh and I didn't have anyone teach it to me. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't know all that. So then I was
Yep.
like, my title girl in Florida, Ava, I was like, okay, listen, here's what I'm doing. I'm bringing these to you from now on. And after the first few, I never did any that. Even if I'm having just anything, I have
Yep.
people meet me at the title company or the closing or
We
whatever. Because first of all, it feels like a real deal,
Well, it is a real deal.
and no, it is. But if someone's sitting with you at Denny's or the Waffle House and you're
Yes.
signing in their mind, I think they feel like, well, we did this at Denny's. Like I could probably get out of it. But if you
Yes.
go to an attorney's office, it has the feeling of like, okay, this is an official office. This is a real deal, and it is a real deal. But I think for the homeowner, subconsciously, it
Yes.
feels like, okay, I actually did just give my house away or sell my house.
Yep. So one of the things we started to do because of that very thing
That's
that you
funny you call it
just,
Waffle House because I did it at Denny's.
yeah, what we started to, we haven't done many of these for a while, but we're starting to do more and more because the economy's kind of taking a hit. But
That is.
years ago, when I would sell a property on a lease with an option to buy,
Uh-huh.
I would actually pay my attorney $100 to do it in his office
Uh-huh.
because one of the things that I kind of preach or teach my students is if they think it's official, they're going to take better care of it
Yeah,
and
they
they're going to
are.
take it more seriously. So if you've got a person that you go to an attorney and they rubber stamp this stuff in front of the attorney, um, it has the look, the feel of being
Yep.
a viable, very official
Yep.
closing.
No, I'm with you. And I tell
Yeah.
people all the time, I said that $1,000 that you're trying to save, if you end up in a lawsuit about it, it's going to cost you 10 or 20 times that amount of money. And then if anyone else finds out and sees you in the news or whatever, they're, oh, I worked with that guy. And then you
Yep.
got a freaking daisy chain of people and you're in all kinds of trouble. It's like
Yep.
spend the money.
Yep.
There's places to save money in real estate investing. There's places not to. This is not a place to save a dollar.
I agree 100%.
I see. I feel like I'm always preaching to the choir, so I'm happy to hear you say that
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm like a broken record over that stuff. It's like this is not where you save money. This is
No,
not the place.
and the other thing that I see is, YouTube is probably one of the most prolific, best thing that ever happened to us from an educational standpoint because I learned an enormous amount of
I
information
do
from
so.
YouTube. But I always caution people if you're trying to learn real estate from a 10-minute YouTube video, be careful with that
Yeah.
because you're not getting the full information.
Yeah.
And not and there are speakers out there that haven't been in the business as long as we have, that don't have the background, don't have the information that we do, but they are very good at sales,
Yes.
and they don't have a full grasp of everything because they haven't
Yep.
seen everything. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I have been in this business 20 plus years. Between the
Yeah.
two of us, it's
The
probably closer to
90s.
50
The
some years.
90s.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
started in 97.
I started just a few years ahead of you because Ada was born in 88. So I was getting divorced in 89. So it was like 90, 91. I was just
Yeah.
right
So, yeah. So a lot of these folks that are giving you information, just be careful. I mean, I'm not here to knock anyone, but just make sure that they have a very full grasp
No,
of
I tell people straight out, I am here to knock people. I'm like, listen, if you're trying to buy a $2,000 shiny object from someone and they've been investing for 3 years, or they invested 20 years ago and haven't done a deal since, but still want to sell you a program, don't work with them.
yeah.
If they're not actively investing, if they can't actively show you deals that they're doing, and they don't, because someone that's been in the business 3 years has some great program, but they're a good marketer. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they're a good trainer
But if they've
or
been
a
in business for
mentor.
3 years, they don't know the art of creative deal
They
structuring.
know nothing. They haven't been through anything.
You
So
know,
I
I
tell
just
people straight up, I'm like, stop going to all the drive-bys, coming in town off HGTV, stop buying all this stuff, stop spending $50,000 and wasting your time. No one's going to help you. And stop with all these people that have been, I've been investing for 3 years and I made $800,000. Here's a $5,000 program. It's a shiny object. Drop it. So
yeah,
I tell
I
people that
agree.
all the time. I'm like, I don't care. I don't name names, but we all know who we're talking about.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
Like
if
I
they
just
don't
did a
if they
deal.
haven't been from 2008 till now and still investing,
I just did a deal where the seller needed to sell quickly. He wanted to move before the rates went up. Had great credit, um, and wanted this particular house. So I went in and I said, I can't pay you cash. I said, but I'll tell you what, I'll take over your house subject to. I'll give you 30,000 up front. I'll give you $10,000 later when I sell it. I'll get my realtor to go help you put together, negotiate this deal. And so I basically handed them the whole thing. We got them a mortgage broker, a realtor. They got their new house. He had a
nice,
VA. He had a VA that he was able to qualify for two at a time. So he
oh,
could still
nice,
have this one subject to, he could still give that one to me subject to, and still qualify for the new home.
nice.
So my point is, a lot of these new folks that do this, they don't know how to do that.
They don't know that. They don't. I get so angry sometimes at people, especially when I like, I speak in Atlanta or Tampa or somewhere. Someone comes to my weekend workshop, they go, "Oh, I spent $50,000 with blah blah blah," and I can't get anyone to call me or talk to me, and and they really they just have no knowledge whatsoever. It's like, so let me ask you this: so you get
Yeah.
your house is subject to, so the people deed the house to you. Now, Don DeRosa and company own this house. What do you do with them? Do you rent them? Do you sell them out on a financing? Do you lease option? What do you do with them once you get them?
The answer is yes to all of that. It depends on the numbers, right? So in this particular case that I just shared with you, we
Mhm.
were all into this deal for 200,000, 198,000.
Okay.
So I took over the loan at 157,
Okay.
subject to. I gave them $32,000 at closing. And the reason I had to give them that,
That's a lot of money, though.
it is, and that's not normally what I give them. That's not normally what I give. But they needed that to get their new house.
No, I get it. Sometimes you have to.
And they have great credit. So I ended up splitting that payment. I gave them a large chunk down, and then I gave them $10,000 later when I sell. Now, I could, here's the beauty part. If you understand your numbers and you know your numbers, you can decide you should never go into any deal with one exit, with only one exit. If you don't have multiple exits available to you, you should probably pass on that deal.
Yeah, agreed.
So
Agreed.
so this one has a payment of $630. That's his
Okay.
payment. 2.5 or 2.8% was his interest rate, I think. The rent in that area is $1,900.
No. Yeah.
Now, the house was in good shape, but it needs a little bit of TLC. So with that house, I have multiple options with that house.
Mm-hmm.
I can, because there's the as is homes in that neighborhood are selling for between 300 and 330. So I have choices. So I can go and I can just take that house right now. I own it now. I can put it right back on the market and not do a darn thing with it
Yeah,
for
you could.
299,000 and sell it on the open market and make about $80,000.
Yeah.
Or I can take it because I own it. I can owner finance it. I can do a wraparound mortgage on it. I can get 20, 30% down and then create a monthly note of probably a cash flow of $1,000, $1,200 a
Mm-hmm.
month after everything's paid.
Mm-hmm.
And then still have a back end of probably $100,000 down the road.
Yep.
Um, or I could lease purchase it, get a little bit less of a down payment, but the rest of the back end is still the same. So I got three choices at that point. What
Do you ever
I'm going to
just keep
choose to
them
do,
for rentals?
yeah, or I could just rent it if I wanted to just rent it. I can do that. I have done that many times in the past.
What's your
But because
favorite?
this guy's a veteran, he really doesn't want me to keep the loan in his name a long time.
Yeah.
And I told him I would be okay with that. So what I'm probably going to do with this one is I'm probably going to put a little bit in it, fix it, turn around, sell it for somewhere between 330, somewhere in that neighborhood, and basically be done.
No, that's a nice deal. Now, I like to do wraps. I'm a really big fan of doing wraparound mortgages.
Yeah,
That's
me
like
too.
my favorite thing. Like, oh, I love wraps. So when you do wraps, how long do you, when you sell it to the new person, and now they're paying, the Bank of Don or Dwan, how long do you give them to refinance and get out of that?
My loans are typically 35 months.
Now, can you make a balloon payment in 35 months? You do. Okay, I'm writing that down because I know
The
that.
reason I do 35 months here in Georgia, if you have a loan, if you write a loan for 36 for 3 years, you have to pay mortgage intangible tax on that loan. Now, it's not a lot of money, but I write all my notes. Even when I borrow money from private
For
individuals, all my
35
notes are written
months.
for 35 months.
I'm gonna check into that because we used to do, 5-year balloon, then like the Dodd-Frank change, and so now we sort of leave it a little bit more open. But I'm gonna check into that because I would really like to get these people out faster.
Yeah, I do 35 months, but if I find after a conversation with them that they need a little bit more time, because as they get closer, I get my mortgage broker involved
Yeah, me too.
and he'll tell me, Don, there's not a snowball's chance in hell they're getting a loan.
Yeah.
Okay, then we start the conversation of you got a balloon coming up. Now, if they want to extend that balloon another couple years, that conversation is you got to give me more down payment to keep that from ballooning that.
Man after my own heart. Same
Yep.
conversation. I do the same thing. Like, well,
Yep.
it's gonna cost more money. It's gonna cost a few points. Gotta draw some
Right.
paperwork up. So,
Right.
see, I love that. I just like don't get why people are afraid of subject twos. And so many people are like, oh, I don't know. What if they do on sale? And then what if the people default? What if? It's like, well, if the person I wrap it to, if they default, you know, I'll get it back and I'll sell it again. Like,
Well, see, in Georgia, we are a very lender and investor friendly state.
mm-hmm.
So, depending on where you are, I would advise you differently. But like in Georgia, I don't have a problem giving the deed away because we are such a non-judicial state.
Yeah, your
Okay, for those
foreclosures
people
are
that
fast.
yes, so for those of you that don't know what that means is every state in the United States has what's called a judicial process for foreclosure. Meaning there
Mm-hmm.
has to be a lawsuit or a list pendants filed
Yep.
and a judge involved,
Yep.
right? But there's also a handful of other states that also have a non-judicial process. And that's where at closing, instead of doing just the I'm going to sign the promissory note and the security instrument, they also make you sign another document called a waiver of borrower's rights.
Uh-huh.
And when you sign that in certain states that have a non-judicial foreclosure process, you waive your right to that judicial process. So,
Yep.
like, I think I come to mind, like New York, for example, they're a judicial process. Their foreclosure takes years. I mean, or a
Forever.
year. I mean, it's
Yep.
I would that's horrible, right? But in Georgia, because you sign a waiver of borrower's rights, all I have to do is send you a letter for 30 days, give you 30 days notice. That's called a private notification. And then if you don't answer that, I send you a second notification, and then I publish your house in the legal newspaper.
Uh-huh.
And you got 30 days to, otherwise it gets sold at the steps. And
Yep.
within 60 days, I can foreclose.
Yep. Now we have a thing in our paperwork. I have them do a deed in lieu of foreclosure back to me in advance. And then we have a bunch of verbiage, like after 60 days, this is what's going to happen. But I tell everyone, I say, hey, listen, if you realize you can't make the payments or something's happening, I'll give you cash for keys. I'll give you some money. You move out. Like, let's, we're all on the same team here. And out of the 350 something, we've only had like 5 people that ever called and said, look, I literally can't make the payments anymore. You told me if I ran into trouble, you give me some cash. And we go there, we get like 5 grand, we file the deed, do the stuff, and they move out. And I've never, knock on wood, because I've never had to evict a single person, evict or foreclose or
Yeah,
anything, not one. So, but a lot of that is good communication up front too.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of that. I don't have a lot of default.
Yeah,
And I
we've only had
think
a handful.
I think if you do a good job pre-screening them coming in and you set the
Yeah.
expectations
Yep.
and you understand and you do it like a normal mortgage where you say, okay, give me all your expenses. Let me look at your debt to income. Just
Yeah.
because you have just because you have $20,000 doesn't mean I should take you.
Exactly. I want to see the credit. I want to see what's going on. I want to see why can't you go to a bank? I'm okay. People had good credit, then they have a blip, and then their credit's back. I get it. I lost a house, went through a divorce, I had a blip. But people that have like just always long term bad credit, it's like, no, you're never living in my house. But if you had a blip and there
Right.
was something that
Right.
happened, it's like, okay, and you fell behind because of this, I'm certainly willing to give people a second chance. So. Well, it's I
Yeah.
like I mean I love everything you say because I'm just so on board with you and so many times I mean just all the things you said. People, what about this? What about this? What about this? I'm like, yeah, but what if it just goes fine? Like let's just look at instead of always looking at the negative. What if it's just a great deal and it goes fine, and you make money forever on this deal? Like, why is everyone always wanting to throw out all the negative stuff?
Yeah, I think that's the attorney in everyone or the legal counsel in everyone. Everyone kind of gravitates towards the negative.
They do, they do.
But,
But the do on sales, the very first thing I always hear from people, it's like, okay, so here's my explanation for the 10,000th time about that. So let's back up a little bit. So when you were like Don DeRosa and you were like 14, 15, 16, where were you living and what were you doing back then?
I grew up in a little town called Scottdale, Pennsylvania. I don't
Okay.
know how many people, not very many people in there, right? Western Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, probably closer to West Virginia than Pittsburgh. Um, I tell people, I didn't grow up poor, but I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth by any
Uh-huh.
stretch.
Yep.
I grew up average middle income America. I mean,
And what were you doing? Were you like
I,
working and playing sports? Were you a bad guy getting in trouble all the
I
time? What were
was
you doing?
no, I was pretty clean cut. I was very athletic. I played baseball in high school and college. I played all sports. I played football in high school. So I was pretty athletic. I ran my first triathlon in June. I took second place in my
Hey,
age group. In my age group,
yay! How old are you?
that was my first one. That was how old? I'm at 50. I just turned 56.
So that you went in second place for your age group.
Yes.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Triathlon,
That
that's
was
no joke, man. That is you gotta be in shape to do that. Holy cow.
that was on my bucket list. That was on my bucket list for as long as I can remember, and I finally got off my rear end and did it.
Oh, well, I'm very proud of second place. Oh, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
the try. So let me just show my ignorance here. That's the swimming, the running, and the biking,
Yes.
right? All three.
Yep.
Whew,
Well,
man.
I trained for it. I trained for it, and my goal was never to win or even place for that matter. My goal, because I'd never done anything like that. I hate running, but my goal was one. I had one goal, just to finish.
Just to finish.
That was it,
And you
just to
finished
finish.
second.
And then I added a second goal. Then I added a second goal, and I said I just don't want to finish last.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be the lone one dragging in.
Yeah.
Everybody has
So
gotten home.
I did this with a few of my like I made it a game. I made it like an interactive thing. So I went to all my coaching students here in Atlanta and said, "Who wants to do it with me?" So we had a couple people do it with me. And when we were done, I'm like, and they were giving out all these accolades. I told the girl that one of my students, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm leaving." I had no idea. I'm like, I'm never getting a medal for anything. So I left. And she called me
Oh,
about 10 minutes later and says, "You're never going to believe this, but you took second." I'm like, "Get the hell out of here."
congratulations. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so
so great.
I was pretty
I
proud of myself.
Yeah, I bet you were. I listen, if I just finished and I wasn't dead, I'd be excited about that. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
good.
all I
That's
really
good.
wanted to do.
So
But
see
yeah, I
now,
mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania. I
mhm,
went to school at a small school. Well, back then it was like 16,000 students, but it's a school called Indiana University of Pennsylvania,
it's
IUP.
like a big school to me.
And everybody rolls their eyes and goes, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, don't." It's. I think every state has those types of schools, and that was mine.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay though. What's your favorite band of
then
all
I
time?
moved. What's that?
What's your favorite band of all time?
Um, I would have to say probably I'm an '80s guy, so it's got to be someone like Journey, Rush, even Boston,
Now you got to pick
Kansas,
one.
that type. I would say Kansas.
Oh, I like Kansas too. I just watched a show last night, the top 10 hair bands of the 80s. I was like,
That
I
would
know
be
all of
White
them.
Snake. The one that comes to mind on that would be White Snake.
Whitesnake was in there, Poison was in there. What I didn't know is Bon Jovi was in there because I guess
Oh
I
yeah,
just always
that too.
considered them to be like rockers and not hair bands. So there's a few bands in there that I never would have, like Guns N' Roses. I would never consider them to be a hair band. I thought they were like just a hard rock band. So there's a few of the hair
Yeah,
bands I was like,
yeah,
they're a hair band? So it
yeah.
was pretty interesting show. I happen to know all of them. So I was like pretty proud of myself. All right, so what's your favorite food? What do you like to eat?
Well, I would normally say spaghetti and meatballs, but I haven't had pasta. I'm on a keto diet, so I haven't had pasta, rice, any kind of carbs for 3, 4, almost going on 4 years. So now I would have to say a steak.
Oh,
It
steak's
used to
always
be
good too.
pasta.
Yeah, I love pasta, but it does not like me. So I have all that
Yeah.
gluten stuff. So I will sit down every now and then and go, you know what? I'm gonna suffer the consequences and eat that big ass bowl of fettuccine Alfredo. But
Well,
I'm a
I don't
meat
know if
eater.
you remember. I don't know if you remember many years back. Well, probably back in 16. I weighed 350 pounds.
See, I don't remember you like that. When I saw
Yep.
you the other day, a couple weeks ago, I,
Here,
I was like, oh,
let me
Don, now you
see.
look great, but I don't remember you
Yeah,
weighing
let
that.
me see. Let me show you a picture. You will be floored.
I recognize you right away. I was like, oh, Don, wow, you look great. It's good to see you. You look
I
amazing.
probably,
I don't
I
remember ever
probably,
seeing you.
I probably shouldn't show this picture, but
Now, show it. Come on, we want to see it now. See, I just don't remember you like that.
yep.
Well, you
So
know
that
what?
was
Good for
me.
you for losing the weight, and good for you for eating right, and good for you for doing a marathon because your body and your heart and your family and your friends will thank you.
Yes. So that was a challenge for me. And what I tell people all the time is everybody has dreams, aspirations, goals that they want to do, but most
Yeah,
people don't actually do them. And the
they
reason you
don't.
don't do them is not because you're not smart enough, not because you can't. It's because you don't write them down and you don't chip away at them on a daily basis.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
so,
And losing a lot of weight
one
is
of the things,
hard because it's like if people, have an issue with like alcohol, you can stop drinking and go through whatever. But if you have an issue with food, you still have to eat.
yeah, you
And
can't
my
stop
aunt
eating.
Carrie, she weighed 475 pounds when she died. And that woman had been on 1,000 diets, 1,000 lifestyles, 1,000 of this and just all her whole life. And when she passed away, she was 72 and she weighed 475 pounds. And she just all her life just wanted to be thin. So one time she went on one of those liquid diets only and got down to 200 pounds. And we were like, holy cow, you look freaking amazing. And then as soon as she started eating, there it was. So you have to commit
Yep.
to a lifestyle change to drop weight like that. I mean, that just, it doesn't come on overnight. It doesn't come up overnight.
Well, my moment was when I went to the doctors and he said to me, do you have a family? This was back when I was 350. And he said, do you have a family? I said, yeah. He goes, do you have any grandkids? I said, no, not yet, but hopefully soon. He goes, do you want to see them grow up? I said, of course. Why? He goes, then you need to lose weight. And I'm like, oh God, you sound like my wife. He goes, why? He goes, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a task. He goes, I want you to go to the mall today. I want you to look around. And he goes, I want you to tell me how many 85-year-old, 350-pound men you see. And I went, okay. So I did what he said. I actually, because I had to go to the Apple store at the time. And I'm like, okay. And I walked around and I looked around. And guess what I didn't see? Any 85-year-old, 350-pound men.
Now, and you see those
And
women
I
and
was
those
like,
men walking the mall and they're all trim. Well, you know what? That's really
yep. And I
good.
said, okay. I said, okay, got it. Message received. And from that
That is
moment on,
really a kind of a profound message
yeah, yeah.
because you don't
So
see
that
many
was when
people
I
that are
started
that.
training, started eating better, started doing all that. And four
Well,
years
you look
later, here I am.
amazing and you look great. And when I saw you last
Thank you.
month, I was like, oh my God, so good to see you. You look amazing. I just don't remember. So I'm happy for you. I'm happy for your family. And you know what? I have 4 grandkids now. And grandkids are the best thing since sliced bread. Like you definitely want to see your grandkids grow up.
I have one now. I have one.
They're awesome. So my
Yeah.
son Will has all 4 of the kids, and the 2 girls have no kids left. I'm like, listen, girls, y'all need to get on the stick. There's 4 grandkids over here. Y'all got nothing. You need to get going, like literally.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you another question. What's your favorite? What's your favorite time, or what's your favorite part of the day? What's your favorite time of day, or their favorite part? Like, where's something you're like, ah, this is just great.
1 o'clock in the morning.
Are you up at that time?
Yes. I get up about 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not every day, but most days I go. My wife goes, she's a preschool teacher, so I go and I, make her breakfast or not breakfast, but may I make her lunch, get her out the door, feed the dogs, and then I go to work and, you know, chaos from the minute I leave. Not chaos,
Mm-hmm.
but the only time I feel like I'm like, okay, this is my time is probably, I shouldn't say 1 o'clock, but probably from 10 p.m., 11 p.m. till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm generally doing stuff. There's no phone's ringing. I'm quiet. I'm not an early riser where I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's never been me.
No,
I'm
me
the
either.
opposite.
Me
I'm the
too.
opposite.
You know, it's funny. All the people I interview, they always go, "Oh, my favorite time of day is 5 a.m. I get up and it's quiet." And I'm like, my favorite time is 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. It's quiet. I'm thinking. My mind
Yep.
is alert. I've got ideas coming all over the place. And you're the first
Yep.
person. That's why I like you so much. You're the first person I've interviewed that likes that late night. I love the late night. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
was
getting up
up
at 5
till, I
a.m.
don't
to
know,
work
3 o'clock.
out.
Yeah, nah. I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got some of the most productive stuff done between midnight and 3 a.m.
Yeah,
because nobody's bothering me.
yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah. See,
So,
that makes me love you more. You're the first person I've
oh,
interviewed that likes the night, the late night, the late night. Because the late night, I don't know, it's just
yep,
quiet. It's really quiet in the mountains, and you can hear like animals, and it's just
yep,
peaceful, and you can think. And I don't know, there's just no distractions. And I know you can have that at any time, but I don't know. I am definitely a night owl.
yep,
I
I
feel
am
good
too.
at night. So I like it. Well, I love that about you. Okay, so one more time, tell us again how people can reach you.
Easiest way, let's see, I'll put it back up here. But the easiest way is you can email me if you want. You can,
So
that's my
it's Don
cell phone right
DeRosa5
there.
at gmail.com because the girls that write my show notes need to hear that.
Yeah, DonDeRosa5 at gmail.com. That's my personal email. I have many emails, but that's the one I check most often. And then
Nice.
my cell phone is 678-410-7352. I also have, if anybody wants, I do free 30-minute consultations with anybody just to kind of get them started if they want.
That's great. How do they
But
get one of
that's
those?
they could either text me, or the easiest way would be to go to our website at expertrealestatecoaching.com. That's kind of like a Facebook environment, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so expertrealestatecoaching.com is kind of like a Facebook forum where we have an outer circle and then an inner circle. The outer circle, anybody can join for free. You can
Right.
schedule an appointment with me, you can communicate with me. But then as we educate and you kind of see what we bring to the table, then you have our inner circle, kind of like yours, where
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
pay to be on that inner circle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But people,
So,
I tell everyone, I said, listen, you're going to learn one or two ways from mentors or mistakes, and mentors are way cheaper.
yes, no
If you
kidding.
make some big mistake in real estate investing, you'll be paying for it for a long time. So, okay. So
Yep.
I'm gonna do a little summary. So this session where I interview people, we call it Inside the Minds of Today's Millionaires. So I write a lot of notes because I like to ask questions of things I'm interested in and what things I'm curious about. And then we do a little bit of a summary and see if we were able to figure out just a little bit of who Don DeRosa is. So, first of all, you're today's
Okay.
Wicked Smart Man. Don DeRosa5 at gmail.com. 678-410-7352. 56 years old. You got 20 courses. I love that about you. You worked at Airborne Express and you went to work at like really, really, really early. You get off like 5 in the morning and you sell Carlton sheets, which makes me laugh because I did the same thing. Bought the Carlton sheets, and then you moved 7 times in 10 years and opened less and less and less boxes. And your wife was like, open the boxes, get rid of them, open them something. And there was Carlton sheets. So you got into real estate with Carlton sheets and then on with Ron LeGrand, and he's awesome too. And you do mostly subject twos, and you went to Scotts. You were born in Scottsdale, Pennsylvania. You played baseball. You like Kansas steak, 10 to 2 a.m. You're in the Keller Williams book. Love that. And like the subject two, you were giving us an example. This was just I wrote the whole example down. 630 payment, 2.5% interest. You can rent it out for 1,900, and you rent, wrap, sell, and do lease options.
Yep.
And you're an
But I
awesome
left
person.
off one of my great. I left off one of my greatest achievements.
What's that?
My wife of 30, almost 32 years, and my 3 children.
32 years married. Right. Nice. And 3 kids. And you have a grandbaby.
And my grandbaby. That's right.
Hey, listen,
That's
being
my
married
greatest
32 years,
achievement.
that's nothing to sneeze at. I'm going in 20, and marriage is not for the faint of heart. you, you've got to be all in and really committed, right?
That's
I
it.
tell people, because with us, it's like divorce is not an option. So it's like, if you're going all in and this is it for real, it is not for the faint of heart. All right. Well, and for
Yep.
me, folks, if you're just tuning in and learning about me, my name is Dwan Benton Twyford. My website is Dwanderful. So I took Dwan and Wonderful and I made a new word. And I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything's under Dwanderful. And I want to ask you guys to do me a favor. You have a podcast too, right, Don?
I do.
What's your
I
podcast
do.
called?
It is The Odd Couple of Real Estate, but we haven't launched it. We've had several episodes, but I've just been putting them up on my YouTube channel,
Okay, so
which
Odd Couple of Real Estate, which I'm sure you guys will see me on there as a guest. And my podcast,
yeah,
the most
we'll go.
wonderful real estate podcast ever. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. If you like the show today, if you laughed, if you learned anything, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe, because we do podcasts and teaching and training to help you all become more successful. And so you got to help us back by subscribing, sharing, and letting everybody else know what it is that we have going on. Okay, last thing. I need you to give us a parting word of wisdom, but it's just a single word.
Single word. Okay. Focus.
Good word. Okay, so everyone, Team Dwanderful, focus is your word of the week. So you are going to focus on whatever it is you got going on, focus on it. Okay, and again, I want to thank you for being on the show today. And everybody else, we'll be back same bat time, same bat channel. And remember that the truth is in the red letters. Okay, everybody. Ciao.